Welcome to the Deerfield Theater Podcast. In this season, we're talking about Deerfield's production of Murder on the Orient Express. In case you're tuning in and didn't already know, Deerfield Theater is putting on a production of Murder on the Orient Express this April of 2026, and performances start Friday, April 3rd, and only go through Sunday, April 12th, where we kill the performances. So while you're listening to this episode, visit the link in the show notes and get your tickets. Without further delay, here's the interview. Welcome to another episode of the Deerfield Theater Podcast. I have with me today just a voice that in the first few minutes we've been talking was made for podcasting. Brian Parry, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Happy to be here.
So how does one acquire such a distinctive, great voice like the one that you have?
I assume it's genes. I mean, I've tried not to do anything to damage it, but I am reminded often by my mother, who's still with me, that at, I believe it was a 1-year-old checkup, the doctor asked how long I had had that cold, and she just said, "That's his voice." So yeah, it's a blessing and sometimes a burden. It has meant that even in kindergarten, if I was doing any kind of dramatic reading, I was always the older characters, because there's no way anyone would believe this voice was a young character. So
Wow. All right. So yeah, fortunate to have that voice. It just came with the package then when Brian Parry entered the world. Okay.
or better or worse, yes.
Right. Well, I mean, you're certainly, in the performing arts, it must lend itself well to roles like the role you have. Go ahead and tell our listeners who you are in the upcoming Deerfield Theater production of Murder on the Orient Express.
I have the great privilege and honor and responsibility of bringing to life the famous detective Hercule Poirot in this stage adaptation of Murder on the Orient Express.
Oh, well, we're very excited to be doing the show and to have you in the lead role. But before we even get into the upcoming show, just tell our audience a little bit about yourself and what even made you want to audition for this role.
Boy, well, as far as myself, I am retired for a few years now, which gives me time to spend, well, more time in doing things for fun as opposed to making sure the bills are paid. Still have to make sure the bills are paid, but I have been working as an actor in the Chicago area for several decades, and I'm also finding out that I've reached a point where there are not as many roles available for people in my particular demographic. So I want to keep the muscles going, so I look out for other opportunities, which is why a couple of years ago, actually, I was attracted to a production of Noises Off that was being produced at Deerfield Theater. And I had seen it decades before that with friends in it, realized in fact that one actor was way too young to be playing the role that he was playing. But now I was old enough to be playing the role that he was playing. And so I just went after that and had a great time with a lot of fun people and a marvelous facility that we're performing in. And so when I heard recently that there was going to be a production of Murder on the Orient Express, I thought, okay, I am never going to do Sherlock Holmes. I'm never going to be Superman. I'm never going to be Batman, but I could be Hercule Poirot. And so I kind of went after that and have never regretted it for an instant.
Well, great. Then tell us about how this production is coming together.
Well, we've had the good fortune, I'm sure because of some very good planning on the part of our director, Matt Cannon, to have started comfortably in advance, as far as I'm concerned, to have the time to let things set in. And there are a lot of lines, and it takes me longer and longer to learn lines the older I get. But he scheduled things to start several weeks before we got into crunch phase. And so I've had that time and have gotten, how shall I say, gotten to know my fellow actors. There's one, Naomi, that I acted with actually 15 years or so ago in a production over in Evanston. And so it's a small world, so you better be careful because you're going to bump into whoever you upset earlier again. So I try not to do that. But that was a bit of a joyful experience. And actually, in Noises Off, there was an actress who I had been in a show with her back when she was about 15 years old. And so that was fun to come around to. As far as how this play is coming together, I thought at first that I discovered something profound, but it's not terribly profound. But the bottom line is that it is a murder mystery, and a murder mystery is a bit of a fine-tuned machine. And so a lot of what we have to do is make sure that the parts are where they need to be and everything goes together just so. And that's kind of what we've been working on, that and learning lines, but getting all those parts moving properly as we get closer and closer to opening.
Yeah, and the thing about the murder mystery is certainly in any story, you're along for the ride and you might try to think, oh, well, I wonder if this is how it's going to end. But you're not necessarily encouraged to do that with any old story. But in a murder mystery, there are certain clues that may be laid out. And like you have to make sure that maybe the audience is picking up on some of those things. And it's like you're really asking the audience to be engaged, I feel like, more than in your typical play, don't you think?
Absolutely. And with this play and this story specifically, it is, I believe, Agatha Christie's most famous and probably best-selling work. So a huge portion of the world has been exposed to this in one way or another. So there's the challenge of, okay, there's a good percentage of our audience is going to have some idea of what they think is going on based on prior experiences with the story. And so there's a little bit of an obligation, which the playwright specifically has found a way to make it a little bit different than people's expectations might be.
Mm-hmm. Well, then, if that of course begs the question, in your opinion, everybody has a different opinion on this. If you haven't come across Murder on the Orient Express, be it in play or movie or audiobook form yet, should you hold off and make this your first introduction to the story?
Oh, well, definitely make this your introduction to the story, if nothing else, then because nothing beats a live performance. So it's got that going for it. And yet there's spectacle, which, it appears different ways in film and TV, but there's just something about being in the middle of it when it actually happens, not watching what has gone on weeks or months before and has been edited and tweaked, etc. So you get just exactly what that final thing should be. It's going to be different every night.
Hmm.
And I've also found that there are a couple of moments that I have a certain amount of liberty with, such that they can be a little bit different every night, and it does no damage to the script or anything else. It's just a little bit of fun to kind of keep me on my toes and really thoroughly engaged.
And that, folks, is what we call a teaser. You better you don't even just come to one show for Deerfield Theater's production. You got to come to many because you never know. Every night might be a little bit different. How about that? That's good. Great. I usually ask people at the end to try to pitch it and get some butts and seats. But Brian, I think you just accomplished that. That's excellent. Another thing is, yes, sir, on movie or film or even just your imagination, you could imagine the mustache of Hercule. But in a live performance like this one, and this is a podcast we do, if you go to deerfieldtheater.substack.com, you can see the video, but you have a particular mustache hanging from your lip right there that I see. So talk about why getting that much into the role and not using like a fake.
Well, it is a work in progress. I still have a few more weeks, and right now it's in a raw state. I haven't gotten into the waxing and everything, which will get it closer and closer. I have had experience with fake mustaches and hair pieces, and boy, it's always risky. And I have lived through some incidents where, well, that didn't stick as long as it was supposed to, and how do I get through the next 15 minutes before I can get off stage and repair it? And so I was kind of determined I was not going to put myself through that bad experience, if at all possible. So I have just taken on the responsibility of somehow producing a Poirot mustache, and it seems to be working okay so far.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely got some oomph to it. You know, I myself could grow a pretty good mustache, but it's skinny. It's like a skinny mustache. It's hard to grow like a thick mustache, and I think you're doing a great job. I think just that alone, especially for the audio only listeners, you're going to want to come and see Brian's mustache for the final product for sure.
Well, that might be overselling it a little bit, but
I've seen a
I'll
lot. I've seen a lot of mustaches, Brian. Okay, I'm just saying yours is up there. I think it's very solid. So we got a little bit off the rails there, or off the handlebars, shall we say?
okay.
So coming back in, even like away from our upcoming show, you've been in the performing arts for decades. You said the pandemic was a very particular experience for the whole world, but especially live things like the performing arts. So if you wouldn't mind, would you share, how you remember and what your experience was during those 2 to 3 years?
Well, I am a member of a theater company on the north side of Chicago named Red Twist Theater, and it's been around now for getting close to 20 years. However, the pandemic came at a really difficult time for us because we were going through a change in administration as far as artistic directors were concerned. But we were working our company is unusual in that we're not itinerant. There is an actual space that we have that is strictly the Red Twist Theater. But that means that bills still have to be paid whether we're doing shows or not. So the effort was to try and do something to get exposure, let people know we're still around. So there were a number of the Zoom presentations, which had varying success in terms of the reception. It's never going to be the same as actually being in there and seeing the thing live, but it was as close as we could get under those circumstances. And I think that our regulars appreciated the fact that we were still coming up with quality product for them and trying to feed their little Red Twist hunger during the COVID time until we were able to reopen. And even reopening, I think I was in the first show upon reopening and on stage because it's a storefront theater. I don't know if you're familiar with that term, but it's very close quarters. It's called a storefront because it's a converted store. And because of the close quarters, we had to be masked as performers, which was interesting because it does lose a good portion of your performing tool by having half of your face closed off like that. So it was a tough time, and we've been very fortunate through some creative management to come out of that and become, I think, even more successful than we had been in the past. But definitely profited from the experiences before that in order to build on it. So anyway, the short answer, we did whatever we had to do to get through it and then be able to reopen our doors when the time was right.
Right, right, and it's like that poem "Good Timber." Right? I don't know if you know that one, where it's anyway. I won't. Don't worry, I won't recite poetry on the podcast, though I feel like it's an appropriate medium to do so. But essentially, you get strong, good timber when the winds blow harder. Right. And so when, you face some harsh winds during the pandemic era, but it sounds like the lessons learned and being able to now appreciate not having to wear a mask on stage, you bring more to it. Probably it sounds like you came out the other end stronger than before.
I'd like to think so, yes.
Yeah. So you've been in then having this theater company and storefront. You've probably been in quite a few shows over the years. So I'm going to make you pick some of your favorite children now, and that is if you had to decide what were some of your favorite performances over the years, realizing that they're all enjoyable for they're all different ways, but just pick a sprinkle of a few of them and share what they were and why.
It's really hard because I've been very fortunate with Red Twist to be offered some just definitely bucket list roles. Willie Loman, Death of a Salesman, for example. We even did a production of Lear. But two that have special places in my heart are a production of The Cripple of Inishmaan, which is it's an Irish play, a fairly contemporary Irish play. Sadly, the playwright's name escapes me at the moment, but when you track it down, it'll be a very recognizable name. But just the wonderful thing about this playwright, first of all, he's generally creates some very brutal theatrical experiences for an audience member and for those of the people on stage as well. This is considered one of his more gentle plays, and yet people are still just brutally honest, brook no foolishness, and yet they love each other. They really do. I mean, the setup is Inishmaan is a small island off the coast of Ireland, and there's maybe 100 people or so, and so everybody, and everybody's business, and no one's fooling anybody about anything, and so that was kind of a delicious experience to get into and just really enjoy just being very mean to everybody else, and it was hilarious. One of our more successful shows for sure. The other, a bit more recently, was Frost Nixon, and I was tapped to play Richard Nixon in this production, and whew, I felt like I really got a target on my back in this one, but I mean, visually, no one was fooled because I mean, I'm missing a little bit of the hairline. And then in the storefront, no one was going to be fooled on that. But I think, got into it sufficiently well, such that an attorney who was involved in the Watergate prosecutions way back when attended a production. And she hung around afterwards, and she told me that her husband said to her he'd never realized how sympathetic a character Richard Nixon was. And I thought, well, did I do that really badly? Or was I very successful? I'm still not quite sure because, I mean, that's a character that I think people love to loathe. And for someone to walk away and say, well, I kind of feel badly for him, it's like, I don't know. But it was a great production, and yeah, one I'll remember for a long time.
I mean, that's the power of art, though, right? Like the artist paints the canvas, and then the person who consumes the art and views the art gets to make up their own mind as to what it means, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And then Martin McDonough, right? Is that yeah,
Yes, thank you.
the magic of the internet while recording a podcast, right?
Ah, bless you, Google.
Yes, yes. So great. Well, just going back here to some fun questions I like to ask. So then, when you're taking off that performer hat and you're sitting in the audience, what have been some of your favorite shows as an audience member over the years? Realizing you could go on and on, but if you had to pick
Yeah,
some.
yeah. I have to say, mm, one that was stunning for me in a number of ways was, this is way back in the day. I'm actually kind of a musical nut. I don't do well. I haven't got a great trained singing voice, and I didn't do enough dance classes, but I love musicals. And so way back when Les Mis was a thing, all I knew was the soundtrack. I thought, yeah, well, okay. I mean, it seems kind of repetitive, but I don't get it. My wife, in the meantime, because of the work that she was doing, she had seen it already a few times in London, and finally there was a trip where I was able to come along and see a performance in London, and it was obviously very eye-opening to see it live in performance and realize, oh my gosh, this is the experience that everyone is talking about. So that was a lot of fun. The capper on that was that many years later, I'd gotten my, at that time, 10-year-old son and his younger sister involved in listening to musicals on CDs or tapes, whatever was available at that time. And the opportunity to audition for a touring production of Les Mis came around in Chicago. So, and my son said, I got it. I need to do this. I said, well, okay, I can't say no. I mean, you know, what's the worst that could happen? He could get cast. Yeah, like that's gonna happen. He did. We got a phone call, and only instead of doing the touring, he had to come to New York and perform on Broadway. And so I
Too.
got to
Oh, he had to
watch.
twist his arm.
He had to, yes. And so I got to watch from a pretty decent set of seats many, many, many performances of Les Mis, and never ceased to love the show. And of course, he was terrific in it. They made a very good choice. So that has a special place in my heart as a viewing experience. And there's a recent production at Red Twist Theater called Chicago, which is the play that the musical was based on. The play is, yeah, I actually saw there was a touring production of just the straight play back in the, I don't know, early 80s or something that went around, and I managed to see it. And I thought, well, yeah, that's okay. And so Red Twist, a group of the performers and backstage people there, had all gotten together and tinkered with this script and came up with a new take on it, which was just amazing, dazzling. And there was music. It was not a musical, but there was quite a bit of music and just incredible talents involved in that. And again, being in a storefront and seeing this essentially mini blockbuster happening in our laps was an experience that I will remember for a long time.
That great, and I love how you brought family into the answer to that question. But even thinking about like a career in the arts, in today's world, I think funding not being there for programs that maybe it used to be there, whether that's in school or even outside in the real world. I feel like I'm curious to get your perspective on this. We talk about this sometimes on the show, and I remember too. But with AI coming for a lot of white collar jobs, and even like robotics coming for physical labor, uh, like is the arts the last bastion of which humans will do something for work where it's not as interesting if the machines or the AI is like I don't want to see robots or AI perform Shakespeare, right? Like I want to see the people do that. So like do you think that now more than ever maybe we should be looking into more arts education and experience?
Well, I think that clearly AI has a place, has many places. I actually back in the 80s, or I guess maybe it was the 70s, as in a theater class, one of a part of our test, essay test, was to talk about how I envision the theater of the future. And in fact, I'm also a bit of a science fiction nerd. I talked about how essentially it was going to be AI. So this was in the 70s. I was predicting the potential demise of the theater as a live arts back then. I'm not a fan of it, that idea, but I can definitely, I could see then and I can see now, how it would be attractive from a business standpoint. I mean, the great thing about watching something like Les Mis, I referred to a murder mystery as being a machine, but a that was a well-oiled machine. I mean, you don't spend as much money as it costs to be on Broadway without things being well-oiled. So
Hmm.
it was a machine, and everybody had exactly their responsibilities and had to be there when it was time for them to be there, etc. But still, they're flesh and blood, and there's always going to be that tension about could something go wrong? Did something go wrong? And I missed it, or did I get fooled because I thought it went wrong, but they actually meant to do it that way? And I don't think that you can get that from an AI experience. So I'm very hopeful for the future of theater as a performing art.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, right? And the AI can enhance a certain level of the experience. Like it helps me produce this podcast, right? Which makes it easier to get this out there so people could go see Deerfield's production of Murder on the Orient Express, which, by the way, tickets for sale in the show notes or at deerfieldtheater.com. Make sure to go get those tickets. But yeah, it's such an interesting world that we live in today. And even if AI were to write the next great play or musical, it would be derivative based on its training data of like all the past shows and everything. And that might be good for a while, but I think you have diminishing results with that. And I think the human experience is something that could really only be captured by the humans, and that's what the arts are.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like music versus music. And so, yeah, AI getting into it would be a little bit on the Muzak side of an approach to theater, I fear. So people will definitely know the difference. And some people may be attracted to that and be satisfied by it. I wouldn't, but that's okay. That's just me.
Right, right. But more than ever now, because I'll hear from people, oh oh no, my kid's going off to college. What should we do? Like what like is I'm a lawyer, so it's like, is law a good career? Choice. It's like, well, I for all these reasons I think yes, but also the AI is coming for a lot of these white collar jobs, right? So maybe like let them take a theater class in college and see how they like it.
Well, I don't want to tread on any toes here, but always take a theater class, even if it's just one. There's so many reasons to take a theater class, just between the forced socialization that's going to happen and the exposure to a world of storytelling. You can't go wrong by taking a theater class for whatever your ultimate major turns out to be.
Even I majored in philosophy, which isn't so far off from the usefulness of a theater degree. Just kidding. No, and I took acting 101 in undergrad, and just learning about how to make choices as an actor is so useful to making choices as a human. Who would have thought? So with that, I think that about covers the interview. I've let people know how they could go get their tickets. Again, deerfieldtheater.com. Get your tickets so you could still and get them now. I mean, we're publishing this around the same time of recording, so get them before the good seats are gone, and even then, still get your tickets. But then also, Brian, you mentioned Red Twist, right? And
Yes,
hey, more theater is good, as we were just talking about. So there's no shortage of theater. So it's Red Twist Theater, spelled the correct way.org, right?
correct. Yes,
Okay.
yes,
R before the E at the end, folks, just in case you were
right.
wondering. Redtwisttheater.org to go check out all the cool things Brian and the team over there are doing too. And with that, thanks again, Brian Parry, one last time for coming on the Deerfield Theater Podcast.
Well, it's been my pleasure and my terror. So.
And that's our show. Please share this podcast to help support the work of Deerfield Theater. An even better way to support us is to go see Murder on the Orient Express. To purchase tickets, visit deerfieldtheater.com or click the link in the show notes. Thank you to the production staff and cast for Murder on the Orient Express. Please follow us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your preferred listening app to never miss an episode. Until next time, thanks to everyone who continues to support the arts. We'll see you at the theater.